Sure. Okay, so I feel like as a futurist, my job is to kind of anticipate change, and I think we all know we're in a pretty historic geopolitical moment. And some of the institutions that we rely on for our visibility and to make change may become very politically and economically distracted. And so we may not have the access that we currently do. So my question would be for Chelsea, philanthropies and new funding sources and new sources of visibility may become vital for us to continue the work that we do. So how do you recommend getting in front of, whether it's family offices or new philanthropic initiatives, and what do they need to see for us to be seen by them? Because soon it might be a critical source for all of us.
Oh, what a question. So I think I'll start by answering, I don't disagree with your sentiment, right? That we are heading into a different climate and accessing capital is going to be hard and difficult. And that is the reason now more than ever, we have to build these intergenerational communities. And I've seen it when young people that have access to capital hear of the opportunities and the solutions, and you can align and relate, but you're grounded in the support of logical frameworks. And Sinyad, you did a beautiful job yesterday of kind of talking about a lot of what I see in terms of decision making and these tools, right, that we're gonna need to move forward. But to answer your question, the time to build that was 10 years ago. I started trying to say that 10 years ago. I feel like now people are kind of catching up and understand that, logic matters and next-gen inheritors matter. But what I would say, okay, great, Chelsea, you've just said that, you agree with me. What do we do? I think what we do is we have to create situations in which I'm not the only young philanthropist that's in this room, and maybe there are more of you, I don't know, but that we have 50 plus next-gen philanthropists with access to capital, and Nisa and I talk about this a lot. Bring a friend. Any room that you're in, if you meet an investor or if you have an opportunity to speak, bring another young person with you. If you join that board, if you join a bank advisory board, fight for another next gen, fight for another woman, fight for another diverse leader, fight for another person that cares about SDGs. I don't care who you fight for, but fight for somebody. So my tangible answer is we have to move collaborations forward, like the one that we're working on with Paul, so that we're not operating in silos of philanthropic capital, investment capital. Those worlds need to come together, and then also entrepreneurs. And I would also say, the last thing I would say on this is, some of us wear multiple hats, right? And so what you really can do is start to better ask questions to understand. You might be a founder, but you might have a great investor network, and maybe we can work together, right? So collaboration, communities, more forums to actually bring people with young capital with topically together.
Thank you so much. We have Zachariah over there.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure listening to all the talks that are really very inspiring. And as Professor Jeffrey Sachs said yesterday morning, it's up to the youth to lead the way. And it's such a pleasure seeing all these success stories. I have a question for Sameh and all the speakers. In the context of emerging discussions around the post-2030 development agenda, which issues should be prioritized to strengthen youth advocacy globally? What do you think should be our key priorities moving forward? Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent question, Zakaria. Thank you very much. So I just want to stress that on one thing. The choices we make today will be inherited by the future generations. Whether that is policy making or engaging within international organizations or civil society, we need to act sooner to make sure the change happens. The sooner, the better. I have 4 things to answer your question. First, it's good that we have a seat at the table, but what difference does that seat make? So we need to have a legally binding youth engagement mechanism. Like the African Union, for example, has a similar mechanism within the Youth Envoys role. Financing youth-led solutions. It doesn't make sense that we have to pay from our pockets, that we're earning minimum wage or just above that to be able to attend and make our voices heard in so many conferences and places around the world. And it also doesn't make sense that less than 1% of the global climate finances reach youth-led organizations. So new financing mechanisms need to be allocated to make sure that the funding is directly reaching youth. Third point is policy co-creation. Youth need to be invited in the co-creation, co-writing of whatever policies, just like the UN Human Rights Council youth consultations happen. This model should be expanded beyond just the UN Human Rights Council. And making sure that there is a legal and structural guarantees. So what does that mean? The Security Council until today doesn't have any youth engagement mechanism. We've been lobbying for years and years and years, and we're not getting a no. They're open to the idea, but putting that idea into action needs to have more pushing. Youth-driven accountability. We need to hold the governments accountable. We need to hold the implementers accountable because we're partners. And also empowerment on the national and global levels, but national specifically. 1.5% only of parliamentarians around the world are under the age of 35. That makes no sense. If we're trying to create policies that are affecting our future and the future of our kids, why are we not being included? So I hope that answered your question. Thank you, Zakaria.
Thank you so much. I think we have Gaia who wants to briefly comment on that question.
I just wanted to add something that, again, popped up in the conversation I had with, it seems I'm repetitive, but it means that this conversation drove some ideas. And I think that one key thing we should do is to search for and strive for disagreement. Because sometimes I have the feeling like we agree on many things in here, but also in our home countries, there are many people that do not agree with us. I'm just thinking about Italy, and the majority of youth don't agree and don't have the same priorities I do. It's not a given gender equality, it's not a given climate change is important, they are not given. So I think that to do something, we should search disagreement and these conversations with people that have absolutely different views, but most of the time are the majority, so.
Thank you so much, Gaia. I know we have a few more questions, but actually there's someone who wants to comment on this session and the Vatican Youth Symposium. So I think I might pass it. Yeah, you sure? Okay. Well, I saw that Nisa wanted to comment on that question as well. Do you have your hand raised?
Very similar interventions of Gaia. I think that I really wanted to highlight the fact that I work cross-sector, interdisciplinary, and I think you've hit on a very key point that you're not going to get something agreed. Even I've been to 4 COPs, like the climate activists sit on one side, the institutions sit on one side, some countries vote in a very specific way. And I think that, you know, we are witnessing things like legacy gymnastics, like when you are victim to a system, but here we are in a space where a system is ending. Granted, to what Sinead said, we have no idea what is to come, but I think then even more of an opportunity to sit with people who think very radically differently from us. And how I've gotten over the table as one is trust, is you have to trust someone you disagree with because they are making you better. You are moving it to a solution that both of you can benefit from. And I think operating in silos is actually becoming quite harmful, where we need intergenerational dialogue and cross-sector dialogue, out-of-the-box thinking, international leadership, where you have globalization, where the local as well as international feedback around systems thinking and being able to really sit in the middle ground and celebrating new outcomes, because these are the areas where if you don't know what's going on, why not put 5 different people in a room and have their ideas versus 5 people who agree, who continue to operate on a policy intervention that may come across quite aggressively on the other side. And I think it's a new space, and we should really work together and celebrate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nisa. I know there's several questions actually, and I know that, as I said, I think this panel, it's the one that encompasses all of it, but because of time, I ask the panelists with the responses to try to be a little brief. So we have Stacy over there who had a question.
Thanks, Raquel. My question goes to Gaia and Chelsea. Gaia, you spoke about how education is important, but not just any education, quality education, so that young people are able to participate and make meaningful change. And then Chelsea, you spoke about how there are gaps in education. That's quite something that is important for us, especially at global schools, because we're trying to ensure that students get quality education. So if you could maybe expound on the gaps that you're talking about, that would help. Thank you.
I will be very brief. I will connect with a conversation I had with Ilan. I think that hands-on education is super important, and even if I think about Italy, I have studied Ancient Latin and Ancient Greek until I was 19, and I had no idea what climate change was about, what gender non-equalities was. So this is just like, it's not working. And I think the next step is not only to step in and try to give this education peer-to-peer, youth-to-youth, but also convince those teachers that are there and have been there for decades that we can improve with them what they already do, so that we can collaborate to the same directions together for a better education. That's my answer. So I would say, and this actually kind of is a bit about the last question, but it relates to your question too, and that is, I could not agree more, we have to learn to disagree, but I would say we need to be educated about logical fallacies, argumentation, debate, right? If we aren't taught how to disagree, we're never going to actually move things forward. So there's, in my opinion, no better way that we can actually accomplish SDG 16 around peace. There's a reason World Logic Day sits underneath that. And if we're going to understand one another, instead of just talking at one another, we have to operate under, kudos to Marianne Talbot, who is my husband's, I think, idol. She's a logician that is part of why he started Logic Tree. But she taught us this concept called principle of charity, which means you come to every single conversation under the assumption that you might be missing something or that you might actually be wrong. If we teach that in schools for the next generation, imagine when they're in rooms discussing policy, what a difference their argumentation or how they discuss how to move forward in the world will look like. Last thing, because I know we're tight on time, Amanda with UN Global Schools has done an amazing job. One thing that I will share, and her team seems incredible based on what I've heard, how I can validate that work is we ran with a billionaire in New York a 30-person philanthropy kind of exercise into giving, investment, and entrepreneurship. When those 30 predominantly Asian Next Gens and Stanford University students that had access to $1 million in capital or more, but were largely under the age of 25, 95% of them knew what the SDGs were. 95% of them did not know how to talk to their families about investing in the SDGs or how to apply it into the companies that they were interested in. That's the opportunity.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being brief. We have Daniela and then San.
Yeah, thank you. I feel a little bit schizophrenic to say this, but my WhatsApp has been popping up from yesterday, and all the markets outside are crumbling as we are in this very room, sharing all these experience with one another. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to see, so many brilliant young people, and actually we don't know how it's going to be next week with all these markets. We're going to a lower that is lower than the pandemic. I don't know if you guys saw the news. We're here, so we're very excited. But yeah, reality is hitting. And I was just thinking about with this new reality that we're going to be confronted with it. Yeah, we want it or not, it's coming at us. I just want to ask a question to Gaia, actually, because she inspired me with her young energy and your intergenerational. I think that this economy that we are operating on has to change, of course, drastically. And maybe there's something good about destruction and about breakdowns. And I don't know, let's try to see this crisis that is obviously coming at us as something positive. So Gaia, I want to hear your voice, the young.
Intervene. Don't panic. And we'll have a nice coffee break, and then we'll come back and talk about it. But the fall of the market's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the economy. It's not the end of what we're doing. So I just want to intervene before we come back. Don't panic.
Gaia, do you want to add anything?
I can try to answer very quickly. I think disruption has huge potential. There is a lot to start from, but I'm not even sure disruption is enough for some of the people that still have different ideas. I'm just thinking about a few of my previous classmates when we were talking about renewable energy, and he was telling me, but like, what do you think that fossil fuel company will do divestments like this? You know, we are already investing in renewables. And I told him, yes, it's 1% of your revenue. What are you doing with the other 99%? So I think the answer is disruption is important, but it's still not enough if it's not backed up by logical conversation about why the system doesn't work, why we cannot implement circular economy, why we are not internalizing cost, social cost of carbon. These are the reasons why the system is not functioning. There are very specific economic, social reasons. So I think logic reasoning and logic discussion is the way forward to bring different views together and convince them.
Thank you so much, Gaia. We are indeed the disruptors, and we need disruption. So last question is coming from Xan.
Thank you. Yeah, more of a comment, but I'd love reflections, especially from Chelsea or maybe Nisa. And thank you, by the way, for being with us. Youth conferences, we don't often get people with access to finance, even in the room with us. So thank you for being here. And yeah, just wanted to say, I mean, for me, looking, in the future of the youth space, I do think that issue of finance and funding is the most key. I actually think that SDGs, even beyond 2030, that we have the right roadmap there, and youth have so many incredible solutions ready to go if they can just get the finance to do it. And usually youth are incredibly efficient, actually. They do amazing projects, often on very, very low budgets with a lot of volunteer time. It's an amazing investment to make. I was shocked to hear today that one of our colleagues among us has an amazing youth project which was funded by USAID, which has now had funding cut. It's really desperate for young people trying to get funding out there. I talked yesterday how we set up the new Youth Climate Office in the UN. I just spent a year knocking on doors trying to get funding for that, and 90% of the time they said they were very inspired, how much they love youth climate action, and then politely told us they're not going to give us any funding. And we were the lucky ones. Most youth groups actually typically don't have registration documents. They often don't have bank accounts. Sometimes they don't have internet access. And so there's these amazing solutions ready to go, but most big finance actors just can't or are not willing to get funding to them. So yeah, I would love Chelsea, Nisa, all of us here to think about how can we really scale up finance for youth solutions. I think there couldn't be a better investment for all of us, but thank you.
Oh, my comment is maybe not the most optimistic one, but it is the truth, which is that fundraising is really hard. I can personally state that. Some of the things I believe in most in the world, my partner and I, we may die trying to get capital for it, right? Because where is capital going? And this is my pushback on and I'll say this even for myself or our own family, right? We have to educate the next generation, not just on where we've traditionally given, and that philanthropy and charity doesn't sit in one room, and investment and impact and enterprise and VC sit in another. I think the biggest opportunity that we have, and one way that has been successful for me, is just start and understand that your solutions matter, but also creating like forums or communities or joining those. You can actually build your network, right? So I'll give a tangible example. When I was in grad school, I think I was 22, I joined a team of 5 women. The city gave us a bit of capital. We didn't know, but they had done a personality test. So they picked 5 women that were all ENFJ, which is the giver personality type, for Myers-Briggs. We came up with the solution. We met with tons of people that told us no, but we created a giving day. And that one giving day, we partnered with a technology platform to create a giving solution before that was kind of a thing. We raised $10 million in 24 hours as 5 women. Now, I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not even saying that's repeatable. Some would argue it was scalable. I don't know. Could just be right time and that the right person at Google told us yes, and then it was a domino effect. But I think that what I would say is, this is my mistake and what I wish I would have done differently. Don't only sit in youth rooms talking about how we all need capital. We all have to go into intergenerational rooms, and we all have to help each other. And I truly believe that is the best way forward. Last thing I'll say, I know we're way over time. Storytelling is huge. Don't underestimate that. So if you can get someone else, ask, right, to write a story about you, ask to be brought into a boardroom, ask to talk at a bank, ask to do a corporate sponsorship presentation. And then the last thing I'll just share is, learn from other fundraisers, join nonprofit boards or for-profit boards. You'll meet other people with access to capital, and you'll learn how they raise it.